Well, I was born in Blacks Harbor, New Brunswick, and I lived there for 5 or 6 years. My whole family, my father's people, all lived in Blacks Harbor. Then we went to Deer Island, and I lived there until I was 12. And then we moved to St. John, New Brunswick, and I went to St. John High. And I really feel I had the best of both worlds because as a kid, I had the freedom to run and no restrictions. I went to Teachers College in Fredericton, New Brunswick, and I met my husband there. I've met some wonderful people along the way. And when my children reached a certain age, I felt an outlet. I did a lot of volunteer work in the church and so on, and with the Kidney Foundation, and also started rug hooking. So I probably been hooking since 1972. And then I started teaching rug hooking around 1982 or 3 in there. And I've enjoyed every bit of it. And the thing I like about it is the people you meet along the way. They inspire you and keep you going. And I also like the fact that I think rug hooking is a part of our history, the province. It helps tell the story of the province and the women in the province. Both my grandmothers rug hooked. Now, I never saw them physically rug hook, but I certainly enjoyed. I remember as a girl in Blacks Harbor lying down on a mat that my grandmother hooked, my grandmother Bradford, and it had a lovely rose in it. And they hooked a lot of roses at that time. Of course, I didn't realize that. But my grandmother, never saw my grandmother Lang. I never saw her, but her cousin, my mother's would be her second cousin, rug hooked, and I did see some of her work, and I have her hook as well, and so that's pretty well what interests me and how I became interested. Then I started this little bit of rug hooking. I took a course first with Judy Thorpe in Fredericton. I taught through the community college in Fredericton, but I wasn't certified, and I was the only one really teaching, and I was learning as I went. And I attended classes in Nova Scotia, their school, and then I couldn't afford to just put out a lot of money just to go to school. So I'd go to school and teach and earn enough on rug hooking, and then go back to school the next year. And so there was I did that for quite a few years until, but I didn't really get into it a lot until later in the 80s. But mostly I started out just hooking for my own enjoyment. And then I really felt I needed something with my children leaving home, basically, starting to get into high school and leaving home and university. So I really picked up the pace and really enjoyed meeting the people. Once you start involved in a craft or an art form, you get involved to a community of people. I enjoy creating. It's much more strenuous than just picking a pattern and putting it in. This is I get the bottom right here. This is punch hooked as well, but it's all yarns, and it's a tsunami, and that just sort of came from. I mean, I can imagine the turmoil people went through when you heard about the tsunami and the people's home. I tried to even get homes in here, but you can't do it. I couldn't get what I wanted, so I just had a horizon line. And of course, this is Christchurch Cathedral, and this combines flat hooking, and I hooked these, and there's fleece in here, and there's yarns and so on. So that's my design. There's really nothing. You honestly can't say you really designed something if you're inspired by everything in nature. it's there for you. I guess it's an interesting topic in a lot of ways. But I do enjoy the designing. With the teaching, I found I had to teach what they wanted, and right now it's William Morris, and I even, in that, encourage people to take his theme and his style and make it Canadian, using Canadian flowers and birds and so on. Not everybody's up to it. You may have a class of 16 and maybe 1 or 2 will do it. The rest want the pattern. But I like creating my own. But I do like just doing a Jacobean pattern that shows all the different motifs and knowing what they mean. There's a story behind them. I like the history, you see? I like the history of the Jacobean and William Morris and the old mats that we're collecting with the mat registry. I found that we were really losing a lot, and when I was trying to find things, you go to the antique dealers and you could find some, but most of them would tell you, even in the 70s and 80s, that most of the mats had left the province. The traders would come through. I never saw that. I know Mary Marshall, for instance, told me that happened, but they would trade linoleum for the mats, and that's a fact. So we lost a lot. And of course, we're still losing a lot of our culture. So I think it's important, and I do think the mats tell a story of the people, the women especially, and their time and place, because we look at their fabrics and what they use, and some of those are original designs too, although a lot of what we're getting are the Garrett designs, I must say. What we've examined, we haven't got anything from the 1800s. We have some from the early 1900s. There is a mat that we examined where the uniform of the 1812 officer was kept in the family, and then it was hooked into a mat. But the mat isn't that old. The fabric may be, But as far as we're going back 25 years, moving 25 years, so we get surprises every once in a while. I think people are interested now, again, because the women today are looking to fulfill themselves. But it's very fulfilling, and it's wonderful to see people come and anxious to learn and do, and they're seeing more of it too, because we've got more in books and magazines now, so. And in some ways, they want to do something like their grandmothers did. They come for different reasons. You never know what a student is bringing when she comes into a classroom, but quite frequently, it's always an interesting story why she's there. And I do think it's important to have a sense of pride. And you do have, that's why I should be chronicling what I'm doing. And the women that hook their pieces, they're so proud of their first piece that it really is true. They're very proud of what they do. And, they come from every walk of life now. When I first started, they were all sort of homemakers like myself. Now they're lawyers, they're judges, they're nurses, they're physiotherapists, they're everything. And they have a sense of pride in it as well. So, but it has a story of New Brunswick, and I think that's what we should just continue, the tradition and the craft, even if it's an art form. Well, I do think it's important to get help, a teacher or a person that is a good rug cooker, mostly because you avoid a lot of mistakes. And to have, if you do go with someone, that they allow you to express yourself. And if you want a sky that's going to be paisley, then put a paisley sky in. Or just look for someone that's caring and sharing, and whether a teacher or not, just look for someone that's willing to care and share and help you in that process, because it is very rewarding. There's no question about it. Mm-hmm.